I ugly cried the day Willow ended things with me, like, no dignity left, tears everywhere, even my breathing was a mess. She stared at me like I'd just embarrassed her in public and said, almost mocking, "Is it really that serious? You can't function without me?" I nodded like a complete wreck. She let out this tired sigh, pulled out her phone, and with a few taps sent me a ridiculous amount of money as a goodbye gift. Just like that. No warmth, no hesitation. It felt less like a breakup and more like being dismissed. I covered my face and rushed out, playing the part perfectly, head down, shoulders shaking. Behind me, the room went quiet. To them, I was just another guy who fell too hard, too fast. 3 weeks of over-the-top devotion had convinced everyone I was completely gone for her. That illusion lasted, until my post went live. Not long after, my account lit up with a message that made things very clear. I wasn't heartbroken, I was relieved. Thrilled, actually. The breakup wasn't a loss. It was a win. Back in that private room, the mood shifted instantly. Shock. Confusion. Then anger. And Willow? She didn't take it well. A shattered glass, a cut palm, blood on her skin, and still, she found the time to message me. Short, sharp, and cold, take more money, and disappear. 3 weeks earlier, things had started completely differently. The day she sent the breakup text, I reacted immediately, rushed straight to where she was, ignoring everything else. When I walked into that room full of her friends, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed her hand, dropped down, and begged like someone who had nothing left. She barely moved. Just leaned back, completely unfazed, and said it was over. I pushed harder. Asked what I did wrong. Promised to fix anything. I made myself look desperate, pathetic even. Like someone who had built their entire world around her. She studied me, clearly confused. "We've barely been together," she said. "Are you seriously this attached?" I didn't break character. I leaned into it. Moments later, my phone buzzed. The transfer hit. She turned away, already done with the conversation. Told me to leave. Told me not to come back. So I did what any heartbroken guy would do. I left quietly, acting like I'd just lost everything. Outside, under the dim streetlights, the performance ended. I stopped running. The tears disappeared. And for the first time that night, I smiled. Because none of it was real. Not the begging. Not the heartbreak. Not even the relationship. It was all part of something bigger. A system. A deal. A second chance. And the funniest part? I played the role so well, even the system thought I might have meant it. Him off again. He forced a tight smile, but you could see the irritation simmering underneath. The room tried to return to normal, glasses clinking, music humming softly, but the tension refused to leave. I leaned back like I owned the place, completely different from the guy who had been kneeling and begging not long ago. Funny how fast roles change. Willow didn't look away from me. "George," she said evenly, her voice cutting through the noise, "you're acting out of line." I let out a short laugh, swirling the drink in my glass. Out of line? That's rich. A few people shifted uncomfortably. No one expected me to talk back, especially not like this. For 3 weeks, I had been nothing but obedient. Careful. Attentive. Like someone afraid to lose everything. But that version of me was gone. "I think you're forgetting something," I continued casually. "We're done. You said it yourself." Makoto stepped forward again, clearly not ready to let things go. "What's your tone? You think just because you're not crying anymore you suddenly matter?" I glanced at him, unimpressed. "Relax. This doesn't concern you." That only made him angrier. Meanwhile, Willow stayed quiet, but her expression had changed. There was something unfamiliar in her eyes now. Not anger. Not disgust. Something closer to curiosity. Maybe even irritation at losing control of the situation. Interesting. I set my glass down and stood up slowly. "Anyway, enjoy your reunion. I've got better things to do than play background character in someone else's story." No one stopped me this time. Not even her. As I walked out, I could feel eyes following me, confused, stunned, trying to make sense of the sudden shift. Outside, the cool air hit my face, and I exhaled. That chapter was over. The mission? Completed. All that was left was to wait for the system to confirm it. And once it did, I'd be gone. Back to my original world. Back to reality. Back to the life I never thought I'd actually miss. Funny, right? After everything, I was still thinking about going back. Still ready to return to that exhausting, repetitive grind. Guess some habits don't change. But before that, I still had time. Time to spend. Time to enjoy. Time to live like someone who had nothing to lose. And this time, I wasn't going to hold back. Kid throwing a tantrum. That was the first line staring back at them. Then came another. And another. Post after post, sharp, sarcastic, completely unfiltered. The entire room went dead quiet. Every word on that screen stripped away the illusion I had carefully built over the past 3 weeks. The devoted boyfriend, the guy who couldn't live without her, it all shattered in seconds. What replaced it? Blunt honesty. Brutal, even. Meanwhile, I was already halfway down the street. Running. Not for drama this time, pure survival. Because I knew exactly what was happening behind that door. Back inside, no one spoke. Some people glanced at Willow. Others avoided her entirely. No one dared to comment. The posts kept scrolling. Each one worse than the last. Not just complaints, but full-on mockery. Observations about her personality, her temper, the way she treated people. Things no one had ever said out loud. Things no one would say out loud. Except me. Makoto's smug expression slowly froze. This wasn't the humiliation he expected. This wasn't a simp's diary. This was something else entirely. And Willow, she hadn't moved. Her eyes were locked on the screen, reading every single word. For the first time since anyone in that room had known her, she looked shaken. Not angry. Not cold. Just still. Then, crash. The sound of something shattering snapped everyone out of it. No one even saw when she picked up the glass. But now it was in pieces on the floor. A thin line of red traced down her hand again, but she didn't seem to notice. Her attention never left the screen. Turn it off. Her voice was quiet. Too quiet. Makoto hesitated this time. The earlier confidence? Gone. Someone quickly killed the projection. But it was too late. Everyone had already seen enough. Silence returned. Silence returned, heavier than before. Makoto tried to recover, forcing a laugh. Looks like your ex wasn't exactly loyal, huh? No one responded. Because the situation had clearly slipped out of his control. And more importantly, out of hers. Willow finally lowered her gaze. For the first time that night, she looked different. Not untouchable. Not distant. Just a person who had just realized something she couldn't undo. Outside, I didn't stop running until I was sure no one followed me. I bent over, catching my breath, then let out a long exhale. Yeah, that could have gone better. The system's voice popped up, sounding unusually impressed. Host, you really went all in. I straightened up, wiping imaginary sweat off my sleeve. Hey, if you're gonna act, commit to the role. A pause. Then it spoke again. Mission status has been submitted. Awaiting confirmation. I smiled. Good. That meant it was almost over. Behind me, that world was already starting to collapse in ways I didn't need to see. And ahead of me? Freedom. No more pretending. No more chasing. No more playing someone else's version of love. Just a clean exit. At least, that's what I thought. Was to drown myself in distractions. That's why I spent like a madman. Cars, clothes, this place, none of it means anything to me. My voice cracked at just the right moment. I just didn't know what else to do. The room went quiet. Even the bodyguard standing behind her seemed unsure what to make of it. I kept my head lowered, shoulders shaking, every movement carefully controlled. If there was ever a moment to give an Oscar-worthy performance, this was it. A few seconds passed. Then her footsteps echoed slowly across the room. Closer. And closer. Until they stopped right in front of me. Look at me. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. I hesitated, just enough to make it believable, then slowly lifted my head. My eyes were red, wet, filled with just the right amount of pain. For a brief moment, neither of us spoke. She studied my face like she was trying to peel back every layer and figure out what was real and what wasn't. You expect me to believe, she said quietly, that everything you posted was just an act to save your pride. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. What else could it be? I looked away again, forcing another tear to fall. You dumped me in front of everyone. Gave me money like I was some kind of charity case. Do you know how humiliating that felt? My hands clenched slightly. I'm still a man, Willow. Even if I look pathetic to you. I still have feelings. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. For the first time since she walked in, the sharp edge in her expression seemed to soften, just a fraction. But I didn't relax. Not for a second. Because I knew exactly what kind of person she was. Careless on the surface, but she never let anything go. One wrong move, and I was finished. Her gaze shifted again, this time toward the expensive items scattered around the room. Is that why you've been living like this? I nodded faintly. If I stop, I start thinking. A pause. Then I added quietly, and when I think, it hurts. Another long silence followed. Then, she suddenly reached out. My heart skipped. But instead of grabbing me, her fingers brushed lightly against my cheek, wiping away a tear I hadn't even realized was still there. That small gesture caught me off guard. Completely. You're really something, George. Her tone was unreadable. Not cold. Not warm. Just complicated. I can't tell anymore, she continued slowly, whether you're the most sincere person I've met, or the best liar. I forced a weak smile. Does it matter? She didn't answer. Instead, she turned away slightly, as if thinking. The tension in the room eased, but only a little. Then she spoke again. 3 weeks. I froze internally. That's how long we were together, she said. And somehow, you've managed to turn everything into a mess. I stayed quiet. Because honestly? Same. She took a few steps away, then stopped near the window, looking out over the city lights. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, without turning back, we're not done. My heart dropped. Not done? What does that even mean? She finally glanced over her shoulder. This isn't over until I say it's over. And just like that, the situation got a whole lot worse. Took a slow breath, clearly holding herself back. Next time, she said coldly, just leave the food and go. I nodded quickly, putting on that obedient, harmless smile again. Got it, wife, I mean. Miss Willow. Her expression darkened even more. Good. Familiar territory. I carefully placed the breakfast on the table like it was some kind of sacred offering, then stepped back, acting like I didn't even deserve to stand too close. But inside? I was dying. Not emotionally, mentally. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to act this devoted every single day? Especially when you know the whole thing is fake. Still, a mission is a mission. And this time, I couldn't afford any mistakes. Willow glanced at the food, then at me. You're still here. Oh, right. I'll go. I turned to leave, then suddenly stopped, like I just remembered something important. Did you sleep well last night? She stared at me. Blankly. Get out. Okay. I slipped out instantly. Door closed. Silence. The moment I stepped outside, my expression dropped completely. I leaned against the wall, rubbing my temples. This is torture, the system's voice popped up again, sounding way too entertained. Host, your performance has improved significantly. Shut up, I muttered. If I survive this, I deserve an award. No response this time, probably laughing somewhere. I pushed myself off the wall and checked the time. Still early. Which meant? I had a full day ahead of me. A full day of chasing, pleasing, and pretending. Again. Later that afternoon, I showed up at her company. Of course, not inside. I wasn't that bold. I waited outside like a loyal guard dog, holding a drink I specifically researched this time, triple-checked ingredients, no allergies, no accidents. Progress. When she finally walked out, surrounded by employees and that usual icy aura, I stepped forward immediately. Miss Willow, you must be tired. I got you something. She didn't even slow down. I don't want it. I followed anyway. It's low sugar, low caffeine, good for stress. I said I don't want it. Rejected. Again. But I didn't stop. Because that's what this role required. Persistence. Blind, shameless persistence. She got into her car. I stood there, still holding the drink like an idiot. The window rolled down slightly. For a second, I thought she might actually take it. Instead, she said, "Don't come tomorrow." And the window went back up. The car drove off. I stood there for a moment, then looked down at the untouched drink. Harsh. But I didn't throw it away. Instead, I took a sip myself. No slips. No mistakes. No truth. Just the perfect illusion. Again. Like a switch flipped inside him. The anger disappeared. Replaced by something calculated. He suddenly staggered back a step, one hand clutching his chest again, his face turning pale like he'd just been hit by something invisible. Classic. I almost rolled my eyes. Willow, his voice came out weak, fragile, like he might collapse any second. I don't feel well, here we go again. Same trick. Same performance. I glanced at him, unimpressed, then casually took another bite of cake. Honestly, if this guy put half as much effort into being normal as he did into acting dramatic, life would be easier for everyone. Willow, who had been standing beside me, finally moved. For a moment, I thought she might actually go over to him. Makoto clearly thought the same, his whole body leaned slightly in her direction, ready to fall into her arms like last time. But she didn't. Instead, she reached out and grabbed my wrist. I froze. The entire hall froze. Even Makoto's dying act paused mid-performance. Willow's grip wasn't tight, but it was firm enough that I couldn't pull away even if I wanted to. Her voice was calm, steady, and carried just enough volume for the people nearby to hear. "He's with me." 3 simple words. But the impact? Massive. A ripple went through the crowd. Makoto's face went from pale to completely drained of color. "No, that's impossible," he muttered, shaking his head. There's no way you'd." Willow didn't even look at him. Her attention stayed on me. which, frankly, made things 10 times more dangerous. Because I had no idea what she was thinking. Not even a little. "You talk too much," she said quietly to me. I blinked. "What?" Before I could react, she took the plate from my hand and placed it aside, like I was some kind of misbehaving child at a formal event. Then, without warning, she adjusted my collar. My brain stopped. The distance between us closed just enough that I could feel her breath. "Since you insist on playing this role," she murmured, her tone unreadable, "at least look the part." The crowd around us was practically holding its breath. From their perspective, this was intimacy. Real, undeniable intimacy. From my perspective, this was a trap. A very dangerous one. Makoto finally snapped. "You're lying," he shouted, completely losing control. "He humiliated you. He mocked you. How can you still?" "Enough." Willow's voice cut him off instantly. Cold. Sharp. Final. Makoto froze. So did everyone else. She slowly turned her head, her gaze landing on him like a blade. "My choices," she said calmly, "have nothing to do with you." That was it. No shouting. No drama. But somehow, it hit harder than anything else she could have said. Makoto stood there, speechless, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. And me? I was still standing beside her, trying to process what just happened. Because one thing was becoming very clear, this situation was spiraling way out of control. My brain froze. Completely. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Her arms were wrapped around me, tight, real, not part of any act. The faint scent of alcohol lingered on her, mixed with something softer, something unfamiliar. This wasn't the Willow I knew. Or thought I knew. "Say that again." Her voice was low, almost buried against my chest. I didn't move. Didn't dare to. "Say what?" "That you were jealous." My heartbeat instantly went out of rhythm. This was bad. Very bad. Because this wasn't part of the script. I forced a dry laugh, trying to keep things light. Of course I was. Anyone would be, right? Seeing someone they like standing so close to another guy, her grip tightened. George. Just my name. But it carried weight. The kind that made lying feel dangerous. I don't like repeating myself. Silence stretched between us. I swallowed. Then, carefully, I said, "Yeah, I was jealous." For a moment, she didn't respond. Then I felt it, her shoulders relaxed slightly. Like something inside her had finally eased. "I thought," she murmured, "you didn't care anymore." That caught me off guard. Didn't care? Wasn't that exactly what I was aiming for? I hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. And that was enough. She pulled back. Not completely, just enough to look up at me. Those eyes, they weren't cold right now. They were searching. Trying to find something real. "You've been strange lately," she said quietly. "Hot and cold. One moment you're acting like you can't live without me, the next, you look like you want to disappear." I forced a smile, but it felt stiff. Maybe I'm just complicated. She stared at me. Long hard. As if trying to see through every layer I had built. "You're lying." 3 simple words. My heart skipped. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because for the first time since all of this started, I didn't know what to say. She watched me struggle, then slowly let go of me completely. The warmth disappeared. "Just like that? Forget it," she said, turning away. "You don't have to explain." She walked toward the sofa, picking up the glass from the table, her movements calm again, controlled. Like she had just sealed something away. I stood there, still frozen. Because something felt off. This wasn't anger. This wasn't revenge. This was something else entirely. And that made it far more dangerous. She took a slow sip, then spoke without looking at me. "You can leave." Just like that? No shouting. No threats. No sarcasm. Which somehow felt worse than all of those combined. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Because deep down, I had a strange feeling. That if I walked out now, something important would end. And not in the way I expected. "And you're already this flustered." I shot the system an annoyed look. "You try standing there and see if you stay calm." It snorted, clearly enjoying my misery. I leaned back on the sofa, running a hand through my hair, still trying to steady my breathing. This woman, she was completely unpredictable now. Nothing like before. Back then, she wouldn't even let me get close. Now, she was the one closing the distance. Something had clearly changed. And I didn't like it one bit. Because the more real she acted, the harder it became to keep pretending. I clicked my tongue and stood up, pacing around the office. "This is getting out of hand," the system tilted its head. "Isn't this what you wanted? Progress?" "Progress?" I let out a dry laugh. "This feels more like walking into a trap." Before it could reply, the door opened again. Willow stepped back in. I immediately straightened up, switching expressions like flipping a switch. Wife, you're done already? That was fast, come here. No nonsense. No teasing. Just 2 words. I froze for a second, then walked over cautiously. She studied me for a moment, then suddenly reached out and adjusted my collar again, just like before. You've been restless. Not a question. A statement. I forced a smile. How could I be? Just being by your side is enough for me. She didn't react. Didn't smile. Didn't frown. That made it worse. George, she said slowly, do you know what I hate the most? My instinct screamed danger. What? Being lied to. My heart skipped. Her fingers paused on my collar, then tightened slightly. Not enough to hurt. Just enough to remind me she was in control. I don't care if you act, she continued quietly. I don't care if you pretend. But if I ever find out that everything you've shown me is fake, she stopped. Didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Because the meaning was already clear. I swallowed. Then smiled like nothing was wrong. How could it be fake? For a brief moment, our eyes met. Her gaze was sharp. Searching. Almost dangerous. Then suddenly, she let go. Good. Just 1 word. But it felt like I had just passed a test I didn't even understand. She turned away, picking up her coat. Let's go. Where? She glanced back at me, her expression returning to that usual calm, distant look. Didn't I say I'd take you out to eat? I blinked. After everything that just happened, we were going out? You're serious? She raised an eyebrow slightly. Or do you want to stay here and memorize your dictionary? No, let's eat. Definitely eat. Without another word, I followed her out. But as I walked behind her, one thought kept echoing in my mind, this mission was no longer under my control. Admit it, of course. Host, maybe, just maybe, it stammered, ears drooping, you should tell her the truth. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Tell her the truth? Are you insane? Willow's gaze stayed sharp, unwavering, like she could see right through my thoughts. Her fingers lightly pressed against my chest, not harshly, but enough to remind me she was still in control. What truth? I asked casually, trying to sound calm, though my insides were twisting. The thing about this world, the system squeaked. The mission. The conquest. Everything. I froze. My brain short-circuited. If she knows, if she actually figures it out. Willow tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing just a fraction. Mission? I scratched my head, looking down, desperately searching for an excuse. What mission? Oh, you mean the surprise project I was working on? She didn't blink. Didn't smile. Didn't laugh. Just waited. That silence was louder than any shout, heavier than any threat. George, she said softly, voice calm, but every word cut like a blade, I don't think you've been completely honest with me. My stomach flipped. Every scenario I had rehearsed evaporated instantly. How did it come to this? I gulped. Willow, it's complicated. You wouldn't understand. She stepped closer, letting the moonlight catch the sharp angles of her face. Try me. And just like that, the pressure, the stakes, the entire 3-week mission condensed into one moment. I realized there was no hiding anymore. No running. No pretending. The system whimpered, nudging my shoulder, as if begging me to somehow save myself. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, Willow? This world, it's not real. I'm here because I had a mission. To win your heart. Her eyes widened slightly, but not in anger, curiosity, disbelief. Something unreadable. You, what? I had to, I paused, trying to make it sound heroic, or at least convincing. I had to spend 3 weeks, proving myself. To you. And, if I succeeded, I could go back to my original world. Her hand dropped from my chest, but she didn't step back. Silence stretched between us like a tightrope over a canyon. Finally, Willow's voice cut softly through the tension. So, all this time, you were lying to me. I blinked. Not exactly lying. I cared for you. I just had a reason to make you were using me. My heart sank. That one phrase hit harder than any slap, any insult, any anger Willow had ever thrown at me. No, I didn't mean, stop. She held up a finger, stopping me mid-apology. I don't care about the mission. I don't care about the world you're from. All I know is that every time you acted like a simp, every ridiculous stunt, every tear, every kiss, you were doing it for some selfish reason. And yet, here you are, confessing now. Why should I believe anything you say? My chest tightened. Because I do love her. Because I really do. I took a step closer, feeling the cold bite of the moonlight against her skin, and said, Willow? I don't care about the mission anymore. I just want you. Not for the system. Not for the money. Not for anything else. Only for you. Her eyes flickered, briefly softened, then hardened again. Tomorrow, you'll leave, won't you? I swallowed hard. I will, if that's what you want. Willow's lips pressed together in thought. Finally, she whispered, then prove it. Not because of the mission. Not because of your world. Prove it, for me. And in that moment, I realized, the real mission hadn't been about surviving 3 weeks. It had been about surviving her. And somehow, I wanted to succeed. This ending gives the story such a bittersweet, almost fated feel. From Willow's perspective, it's heartbreaking and beautiful. She's the one who fell first, the one who couldn't let go, and yet she had to endure George leaving to fulfill his mission. Her choice to sacrifice her fortune and lifespan to reunite with him speaks volumes about the depth of her love and her courage. What makes it really powerful is the contrast between their two experiences. The story closes on a full circle note, both characters finally reunited, but only after enduring heartbreak, deception, and personal sacrifice. The emotional resonance is intensified because Willow had to give up literally everything to see him again. It's a perfect mix of romance, tension, and bittersweet closure. If you want, I can craft a short epilogue scene that captures that exact reunion, George and Willow meeting again in the new world, showing their relief, excitement, and the quiet depth of their love. It would make the ending feel cinematic. Do you want me to do that?